If you're looking to get educated about climate change and other related topics, this is the video for you. We're talking about eco-friendly books. Not only are we talking about eco-friendly book topics, but also how to get your books in an eco-friendly way. Hello everyone, it's Emma and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all sorts of things zero waste, focusing on free, easy, and fun ways to live low waste. And today we're combining my two passions, reading and the environment. I got back into reading last year. I was a big reader as a kid, and I think this happens to all of us. We get out of high school, we're like, I'm done reading. And then one day I'm like, I want to read again. I guess technically I set my goal in 2022 pretty low. And then last year I was like, okay, I'm setting a bigger goal this year. And ever since then, my goal has doubled. It was 24 books in 2022, 52 books last year, and 104 books this year. So we'll see if I can get there. I do read a lot of fiction, but I do love to sprinkle in some environmental science in there, as well as educational books in general, some nonfiction, to broaden my horizons, get educated about these topics that I'm interested in. And I think these are some great recommendations, whether you are a beginner zero waster or maybe you're like me and you've been zero waste for a couple years, because they talk about a lot of different topics, from overconsumption to water conservation to climate change, where our tech comes from, and so much more. And this is just part one. I have a lot of book recommendations, so let's get into it today. And if you want a part two, let me know. You can follow my reviews on Instagram, Goodreads, and Storygraph. All will be linked down below. But before we get into the actual recommendations, how can you read in an eco-friendly way? I talked about this more in my How I Make My Personal Hobbies Zero Waste in this video. But in short, I highly recommend first checking them out at your local library. If you don't have a library card, go get one. They're free. And the more people that get library cards, the more the government looks at that library and has said, oh, okay, we'll keep funding it. So if you don't want to lose access to your libraries, get a library card and actually go support them. Even if you just get one book a year, that's still showing the government that there's an interest in that library. And libraries offer so much more than just physical books. I know that's what people think about, is borrowing a physical book. Maybe you don't like physical books. Maybe you're an ebook or an audiobook person. Your libraries will do those as well. Back in the day, they used to give CDs that you would take home and listen to, but now libraries have really great apps like Libby and Hoopla. I like Libby personally because Libby actually downloads the books to your phone so you can listen even if you don't have cell service, which happens to us a lot as we are campers and RVers. But Hoopla is great as well. If you have multiple library cards, they all connect to your app. Yeah, you can access so many books through these apps. Libraries will also do things like game rentals, magazines, video games. You can go in and borrow their computers or their printers. So many resources at a library. Go support yours. And they're a great way to get books for literally zero waste. Let's say you want to own your own book instead of borrowing it for 3 weeks. The first thing I highly recommend is going to Thrift Books. I love Thrift Books. It's an online database where you can search by title, by genre, by author, and find the books that you want secondhand. You can pick whether you want the very cheap option, the good or fair, or you want the like new condition, if you want hardback or paperback. And if they don't have your book at that time, you can have a notification set to let you know when it's in stock. I like this as opposed to going to an in-person secondhand bookstore, which is another great option if you want to own, because you can search by title. Secondhand bookstores can be really overwhelming, and if you're not willing to dedicate hours to being there looking for the books that you want, I recommend Thrift Books. It's so much easier, really affordable as well, and they have really good rewards. The more points you build up, the more likely you are to get free books in the future. So buying secondhand, and then after that, I highly recommend going directly to the author. Go support the author directly through their website, through their publisher, as opposed to going to like a big bookstore like Barnes & Noble or Amazon. So that's the order. And if all of those run out and you still can't find the book you want, then I recommend you going to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. The first book I recommend is Consumed by Aja Barber. The full title is this. It's a very long title, but that title basically sums up what this book is about. It is about climate change, colonialism, and overconsumption. This book is a great place to start if you have no idea what overconsumption is, if you have no idea what fast fashion is. This is a great place to start. It's definitely geared towards beginners, but I read this 2 years ago and I still learned a lot as someone who had been zero waste for about 5 years at the time. And I really enjoyed Aja's writing. Here's a quick synopsis if you want to read more. And the main themes of this book are to use what you already have, think before you buy, and look into shopping secondhand. Buy high quality items and take care of what you have. If you need to repair something and mend something, do that instead of throwing it away and buying a new item. My rating for this book was 4 out of 5 just because it was geared towards beginners. I think this is probably a 5 out of 5 for beginners, but overall, highly recommend this book. Another great book for beginners is Sustainable Badass by Mary Johansson. I talk about her all the time. I love Mary and I love her book as well. But once again, I really do think that this is a beginner book. I read this in 2022 or 2023, I forget. I didn't really learn anything. I think her approach was great. I think it really was an excellent place for beginners. If you've been zero waste for 5+ years, I think you can probably skip this one. Because had I discovered this book years ago, I think I really would have found some value in it. And it's not her fault that I already knew everything that she talked about, because I'm doing the same thing that she is. She just started a couple years before me. researching these topics on my own, educating people online about them. Here's a synopsis if you want to read more. And the main theme of this book is eco-swaps, beginner habit changes, eco statistics, inspiration, and just overall the basics of a low-waste lifestyle. So because I think it was geared for beginners, I think it was a 4 out of 5 for me, but for beginners, this is an excellent book. Another really great book that I think is mostly geared towards beginners, but I think that everybody can find a little bit of value in, is The Story of Stuff. Now, I did read this probably in 2019. This was one of my first eco books, but it's such a valuable resource. Annie dives into everything in this book, from how our jeans are made, how our tech is made, and everything in between, and just how many resources it takes to create this stuff, as well as how we dispose of it. It's just all such a toxic cycle. It really talks about the linear economy versus a circular economy. About how we, particularly in the US, we buy things that are cheap, we own them for such a short period of time, and then we dispose of them right into the landfill. The title really is what it's about. It's about the story of all of the stuff on the planet and how consumerism is ruining the planet. Here's a quick synopsis if you want to read more. And the overall themes are overconsumption, thinking before you buy, and using what you already have. The style is a little outdated, and what I mean by this is that there's some climate doomism in this book. While it's valid and accurate, this take on environmentalism isn't widely used anymore, and it's not all that effective in getting people to make changes, so just be warned about that. There might be some climate doom in this book. Because it's a little bit outdated, I give this book a 4 out of 5, but I still think it's a really good read. One eco book that I would probably never stop recommending and talking about is The Intersectional Environmentalist by Leah Thomas. I recommend this book whether you started zero waste right this moment or 50 years ago. Everybody in between. This is a book that is so valuable for every single person, particularly a certain demographic, being if you are one or a combination of able-bodied, white, rich, or any sort of wealthy, if you have access to free time, that sort of stuff. If you are privileged in any sort of way, this is a must read for you, because environmentalism is often white-centric. It's often focused on people with money and people who are able-bodied. And that is the whole point of this book, is that your environmentalism should be intersectional. And what intersectionality means, if you've never heard this term before, according to Oxford Dictionary, it is the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. Basically what it means is like women have less privilege than men. Black people have less privilege than white people. So black women have the least amount of privilege of those two combinations. So here's a synopsis of the book, but basically what this book gets into is feminism, racism, and environmentalism, and how they are all connected. Women's issues are climate issues. Black Lives Matter is a climate issue. As well as we need everyone to be an environmentalist, not just the rich people, not just the white people, not just the scientists. Everybody, no matter what their race, class, sexual orientation, disability is. As well as we need the most privileged in the movement to care about everyone, not just themselves, not just people that look like them, everyone in the movement. Because ultimately, the most privileged, we're not going to face the consequences of climate change. We're not. We live in a country where we're not really affected, or you might live in a neighborhood that's not really affected. But the least privileged on the planet and in the United States, in our own country, are going to face the brunt of the consequences. I give this book a 5 out of 5, maybe even a 6 out of 5. I love this book, especially because I think this book is accessible because it's really short. It's a really, really easy read, whether you're reading or listening. Listening is reading, by the way. As well as the way Leah is the narrator for the audiobook, and the way that she speaks is so clear. She speaks at a speed in which I think everybody can comprehend, no matter what language they speak. Cannot recommend this book enough. I love it. A book that I think I probably loved more than the average person is Downriver, Into the Future of Water in the West. I read this just after we moved away from Las Vegas, and I had dealt with 2 years of water conservation, of drought restrictions, of learning about droughts, and all of that. And I knew that I would love this book. The main takeaway is this: the drought in the West is not just going to affect people who live in the desert Southwest, it's going to affect everyone, and it's a lot scarier than I think people think. It's my Roman Empire. I think about the drought in the desert every day, even though I don't live there anymore. Because guess where most of the food that we eat, not food that animals eat, the food that we eat is grown? California and Arizona. If they run out of water, we're not gonna have much human food left. As well as, if they run out of water, where are those people going to go? They're going to become climate refugees. The other main takeaway of this book is that it is such an easy problem to fix. We just need the governments of these states and the national government to get it together. They almost got it together in 2022, and then 2023, a fluke year with a lot of rain, so they put it on the back burner. And I don't think this winter was a very good winter in the desert Southwest, so we might be back to where we started 2 years ago. But basically, I could talk about this forever, and I have talked about it in several videos that you can find above and below if you want more information about these topics. But here's more of a synopsis on this book. You'll see how water conservation is of utmost importance, not only for people in the desert Southwest, but everyone, because water is such a valuable resource and we should all take it seriously. Water is life. We must protect it and conserve it before we run out. So my rating is, you guessed it, a 5 out of 5. I love this book. It was also really, really entertaining the entire time she's rafting on the Colorado River. It's a really, really good story as well. Next is The Nature Fix by Florence Williams, another book that I absolutely love. And this isn't directly about climate change or waste, but rather it's about getting connected to nature, and I think that they go hand in hand. The more that you connect with nature, the more that you appreciate clean air and clean water, the more plants you get to know, the more animals you get to know, the more you're going to want to protect the planet. Not only that, but also the health benefits of getting outside, of literally touching grass, of breathing fresh air, of smelling the plants. Here's a quick synopsis of the book. It's a long synopsis, sorry, you can pause to read. There are so many different scientific studies in this book, so many different anecdotes. Like, even if this all were proven to be false, that being outside actually didn't affect your health, I think being outside still can connect you, your personal relationship to the planet, and hopefully help you care more about the planet and saving it. But I give this book a 5 out of 5. Another book that isn't directly related to climate change, but I think can help grow your appreciation for nature and the planet, is How to Read a Tree by Tristan Gooley. I might be a little bit biased. I love trees, if you didn't know anything about me, but it will tell you everything about trees, from how they grow individually versus in a forest, how to read tree rings, how to read directions based on which way the branches are going. It is just fascinating. It will leave you feeling connected to nature and hopefully have you inspired to go out and learn new species of trees and get to know your tree neighbors. Here's the synopsis for you, and I give this book a 4.5 out of 5. While very interesting, it was a little bit dry. It did take me quite a while to read through it. Lastly for today is Cobalt Red, and this book is very heavy. It's a very heavy topic, very sad, very emotional, and very eye-opening. Maybe I shouldn't have put this last. We shouldn't have ended on a downer, but I also should have put this first because I think this book is one of the most important books you will probably ever read. It outlines the true cost of our electronics, our phones, our cameras, our laptops, our TVs, our EVs. This book will make you want to buy every single piece of tech secondhand or from an ethical company. I have no doubts about that. Why? Because our phones, our tech run off of so many different valuable metals, but particularly cobalt and coltan, which are mined using slave labor in places like the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, historically known by the people as Goma. If you haven't heard anything about this on the internet, this is a very big topic amongst human rights activists right now, because it really does, you can see how connected this is to the genocide in Palestine. So I'll leave also some creators down below where you can learn more about this topic if you're interested. And here's a quick synopsis of the book. I think this is particularly an absolute must read because guess what? You're probably reading this on tech or watching this on tech, however you're consuming this media. You need to know where your tech is coming from and the impact that it's having on the planet. Can you do anything about it now with that iPhone that you just bought? No, but moving forward, be mindful about where you're getting your tech from. The easiest way you can boycott this industry is by making your tech last as long as possible, repairing, and buying secondhand. I give this book a 5 out of 5. Very, very important book. I hope that you join me in reading some eco-themed books to become a better environmentalist, a better activist, and just overall more educated. There is just so much to learn about and be inspired by. Let me know your favorite eco-themed books down below and I can add them to part 2 as well as read them myself. And once again, check your library, check secondhand, and only then buy new. Thank you for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. I will see you in the next video, but until then, remember that your small actions make a big difference in the long run. Bye guys. And they're a great way to get books literally for zero waste. Girl, shut up.